The Senate is going to vote later today on a bipartisan bill to block the U.S. military from conducting strikes against Venezuela without approval from Congress. The administration so far has launched 16 strikes on boats in the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific, alleging without evidence that those boats were trafficking drugs to the United States. The U.S. military is also building up forces in the waters off South America as the president considers strikes within Venezuela. A similar vote on a similar war powers measure failed last month, 48-51. Joining us now, host of the Independent Americans podcast and founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff, and former assistant U.S. attorney who focused on transnational organized crime, Sean P. Murphy. All right, Sean, I'm going to ask you this. If the president is going after cartels and drug traffickers, what authority does he have outside of Congress?
Thanks for having me back, Katy. He has authority to go after these cartels and drug traffickers in the same way that we've been doing for decades. So there's an actual U.S. law called the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act, MDLEA. And it establishes a procedure for U.S. law enforcement authorities who want to make these kind of interdictions on the high seas to be able to do so in a well-established way. It's not without its own controversy, but it has generally been allowed and seen as positive under international law and received approval under the Circuit Courts of Appeal. So all he had to do was keep doing that, and that is consistent with law. What he shouldn't be doing is just dropping bombs.
This vote failed the last time they tried to raise it, but not by much, just by a handful of lawmakers. Is there any sense that there is an increased desire within Congress right now to pull the president back?
Yes. And I'm going to say flat out, hooray. Like Congress is actually stepping up their responsibility, their constitutional responsibility. And I've been calling for this for a long time. I mean, I still think the most important story in the world is that Donald Trump can do whatever he wants with the most powerful military the world has ever seen. And nothing so far has stopped him. Congress has either been complicit or been rolled over. So this is their responsibility to check him, to require counsel, to require authorization. We haven't had a formal authorization of war since World War II, but we should. And this is how it's supposed to work. So even if they lose this vote, I think it's the right path. And there does seem to be a lack of trust in more Republicans because the Pentagon and Hegseth are not sharing what is pretty basic information about these strikes. So this is good momentum, long overdue. But at least for now, I'm going to celebrate Congress getting somewhat of a backbone.
We will see what the vote ends up being. I mean, don't want to count your chickens before they hatch. You, though, Paul, are a veteran of a regime change war. And there's now talk about regime change in Venezuela. As a veteran of a regime change war that did not go well, what's your advice? What would your advice be to this administration?
Ask yourself if you would go, and ask yourself if you would send your kids. Because what I think we're seeing right now, especially in Washington, is a rise of a new generation of chicken hawks. This is Chicken Hawks 2.0. Dick Cheney just died this week, right? It's a good reminder.
Explain what a chicken hawk is.
Someone who's happy to cheer other people to fight your wars. Right? Someone who wants to send guys like me but wants to sit behind an air-conditioned desk while the bombs drop. And I think that what's been lost in this conversation about Venezuela is every time we drop bombs or do strikes, we're putting Americans in harm's way. This doesn't come without risk, and it won't necessarily come without casualties. So you have to ask these leaders, especially the president, how many Americans are you willing to sacrifice for this? What is the human cost of a war that you are potentially going to wage? That part of the equation often gets lost, and that's the cost that lasts for decades. I mean, Veterans Day is next week. That should be a good reminder of the cost of war. If you want to see what that looks like, come here in New York or any Veterans Day parade around the country and see amputees, people who've been severely wounded, and ask them about their friends they've lost, because that should be what's put before people every time they consider dropping bombs.